Morning, everyone. This is Lou Weiss with Jacket Media Co. Manufacturing Talk Radio. Tim Grady, my co-host, unfortunately, is not with us today. He's under the weather. Hopefully, not COVID. We're here today, beginning of February 2022, and I'm here with Timothy Fiore, committee chair for the ISM manufacturing report. And I know that the numbers are looking pretty good, and we're going to let him pound his chest and tell us how well he did with that. So good morning, Timothy. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. You bet. Hey, the manufacturing community deserves a big round of applause to have powered their way through a difficult January for sure. Not easy. If you remember, our conversation in early January was that we collected the December PMI information, and generally it did not reflect the advancing wave of Omicron across North America. So, sitting here 4 weeks later, it absolutely has, and it's on the decline already. I think we talked that we've had the gain variants and the variants seem to be getting shorter and shorter. So I'm not sure what that means for the future here, but we've had extensive absenteeism throughout January, unbelievably high amounts of people absent from not only the factory floor, but the office areas. The master planners, the requirements planners, the buyer planners, sourcing people. This infection spared nobody. And I think you're seeing that in some of the numbers. We don't actually collect a numerical value for touch labor on the factory floor. I have to essentially extract that from comments. But we had 30% of our general comments talking about labor, which is up from the last few months for sure. We were running 18% of comments, went to 30, and half of those comments were about absenteeism due to COVID. So in my daily job, I get to kind of get around and talk to people, and I saw some incredible numbers spike up in the last couple of weeks and then come down. They're on their way down. So I think at the end of December, I was predicting that we're going to lose a quarter here, that everything's going to get delayed a quarter. Maybe not a quarter, at least 2 months. We're already on many locations. We're already on the backside of the curve. In some locations, we haven't kind of got there. That's why I think we got a little ways to go. But we'll talk through the numbers here. I think the biggest thing is the supplier delivery number. I expected that number to go up again because of COVID. But I think there's a time delay now. I think the suppliers struggle just like our factories. I think that number is going to go up in February as a carryover from the January number. But hey, overall, a great report. I think we'll have a chance here to show some optics on the last 6 manufacturing expansion cycles. And I really want to point out that we have never spent this much time above 60 as we have in this cycle. And therefore, you really can't expect that you can stay there forever. And I think we're falling into that 57 to 59.5 zone here, as I mentioned last month, for probably a long time. I think we're only about 20 months in. Well, we're 20 months into the expansion. I think this is easily a 40-month expansion.
I noticed that 2021, the average index number was 60.5. Right. Has that ever happened?
No, it hasn't. No, not at all.
That's unbelievable.
Absolutely not. So let me see if I can.
So we can only go down from here, right?
Well, yeah, get into something a little bit more normal. So can you see this, Lou?
I certainly can.
All right, this is a great chart. I've got some good friends helping me with this thing, and I think they did a great job in showing what's really happened in 20 years. So I think I've mentioned several times. Let me see if I can get my pointer. I mentioned several times we're in our 6th expansion cycle since 2000. You had the China WTO, otherwise known as the super cycle. You had the carry-on effects here, the subprime mortgage cycle that you can see was kind of weak. Post-Great Recession, we all know about that. Then the silent expansion, where wages and employment levels didn't move very much. Then this is the one that started in April of 16, just before Trump got into the office. You can see that was a pretty high-quality run, compared to the other 4. And now we're in this one here. And the first thing I want to point out is, look at this area above 60.
Wow.
Compared to the last expansion and going back to the super cycle, no comparison. this thing is like probably 2.5 times what this was.
Easy.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, part of that's pandemic related. You can see where we, you know, we really dove down and then jumped right back up. And, you know, we've been expanding. You know, once you drop to a certain level, it's fairly easy to kind of expand at super high numbers for a period of time. But, you know, you're talking a good 14, 15 months here of relatively high expansion. And now we're falling back here in the 57 to 59 level. I think that's fine. If you look at this, just draw it across, I mean, that's pretty much where we ran in the last expansion cycle. Didn't hit that in the silent expansion, hardly hit it post-Great Recession. And we spent some time there here when the China super cycle. So this is extremely high quality. This gives you an idea of the time frame too. So we're 20 months in. You know, that last expansion cycle that ended in the summer of 19, I think it was, you know, ran a pretty long time too. And I think this one's going to be longer. So doing pretty good. Doing very good, I think.
If you could, Timothy, I appreciate if you can send me this slide. It's very interesting, and for historic value, I'd like to have that.
Yeah, you bet. Glad to do that. So since I got them up and I've had tech problems all morning, I'm not going to dare the fates here. Let me go to the money slide here. So this is you know, this is the statement of the month. So first, let me start off by saying we're still in a demand-driven expansion, still constrained by the inputs for sure, as well as labor. Yeah, we had 7-to-1 positive demand comments this month compared to 6-to-1. So we actually got even more optimistic about the future in January than we were in December. I remember December did not carry any Omicron stuff in it.
Right.
We had 11% of the employment comments noting it was easier to hire in January compared to December. That's, you know, pretty significant here. It doubled. That's good. You know, we're still faced with some really heavy headwinds. For instance, 44% of the comments noted high levels of turnover. That number is up from 32% in the prior 4 months. The shocking thing, that's made up of 2 elements, quits and unplanned early retirements. So, you know, the early retirements had peaked in September at 8% of the comments, 8 points of, at that point, 26 points. Is now at 11 points. It had dropped down to 3 points for the last 2 months. So more people opted out of the workforce that were senior aged, you know, losing that tribal knowledge, that you know, institutional knowledge. More people opted out unplanned than have since this thing started. And I think it was a combination of end of the year, you know, you get certain pension things that happen to you at the end of the year. And then Omicron came on and you know, they said, I'm not going through that again. And they had a high value in their 401k. So, you know, the 401k environment changed too since December 31st. We'll see if we'll see if they don't come into the workforce here in the summertime. But that's a pretty high amount of people opting out. And that's a brain drain for sure. And on the quit side, it got to the highest level of comments that I've had so far. You know, we had last couple of months, 29% of the comments are quits. Now they're 33. So that's putting a lot more stress on the hiring people to hire. Yet they're still saying that it's getting better than it was in the prior month. So I think that's real positive.
I have a question about the 11% higher improvement. Last year was, I think, that one of the strongest years for new companies being formed. And we all know that 90% of new companies formed go out of business in the first year. So is it conceivable that that 11% higher improvement, which is double, is maybe these people who have started companies folded and decided to go back to work?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, this is HR, and no, this is really supply management people saying that, from what I've heard in my company, it's getting easier to find people. That's and why is it getting easier to find people? Probably, you know, a number of factors, of which you mentioned one of those.
Got it. So it's looking pretty good as a start for 2022.
Yep. So let's talk about the demand, consumption, and the inputs, because this is the way I like to look at it all. You can see in this chart that I grouped them together in different colors. You know, new orders slacked a bit, down 3 points. It's the single biggest contributor to the PMI coming down from an activity standpoint. The single biggest industry that provided some headwind to the PMI was chemicals. And what really contributed to the chemical PMI decline was the employment level of chemicals. And chemicals is not a big employer. So overall, I'm not that concerned about it. I think chemicals will come back. But in terms of activity here, new orders was the weakest of all the three indexes here. You can see new export orders stayed constant. So that didn't, our international trade partners are still very sluggish. You can see what's happening in China. Their PMIs are really weak. Europe is just now kind of waking up. So don't expect that to help much inside of, Q2 at the earliest. Backlog took a drive too, and I'm concerned about that. I think what happened here in the new order level is that we had so much absenteeism, both on the factory floor as well as the support services, that we were not able to place them all, number one. Number two, we're still arguing with this excessive lead time and high prices environment, so that people are holding back thinking that prices are going to break. We think, they're at high levels. I think even though our index here showed it going up almost 8 points, I think really that was a function of people putting in their orders for delivery in January, and those order values were at higher prices in Q4. So I think that's kind of like a misnomer, and I think that number is going to come back down into that 60 level in February. But I think you get some buyers maybe holding back. I don't think there is any fundamental issue here around demand, especially when we get 7-to-1 positive demand comments. I don't see any reason for this. So for this really drop. So I'm expecting it to come back in November. So then you look at the input side, right? Because the consumption side is a result of both. Supply delivery stayed constant, which is positive. I expected it to go up, which adds to the PMI number. I think it will go up in February as a carry-on effect from the January absenteeism rates. But okay, fine. I mean, at least we didn't jump up way too high. And even if it goes up in February, I don't think it's going to stay very high. We want to get that number in the 58 to 62 level. Inventories came down a little bit, 1.4. Both of these go into the PMI calculation. And I think this is a carryover effect from the end of last year, that people were still trying to clear out that semi-finished goods and finished goods that we wanted to ship in December. We were not able to ship all of it, but those parts did flow in early January. We were able to relieve some of that inventory, and I think this is going to rebuild. I think in February, March, you're going to see this number get back up to the 55 level, which should be pretty good. I already talked about prices. I think that's an anomaly, and imports are gaining slightly. We hit the Lunar New Year today. The last ships from Asia sailed yesterday. It's going to take them 10 days to get over here, and then we probably have about a 2 to 3 week hiatus with no ships coming into the queue. So hopefully the longshoremen and the ports will be able to burn off some of those ships that are waiting offshore. But again, I think we're going to be right back into it, because buyers are going to want to pre-stage inventory and ahead of the contract negotiations with the West Coast that finishes up in June, July. So we're still going to have this big surge of product coming in. And then on the consumption side, output, disappointment on the production number. But, when you get 20, 25% absenteeism, I guess I'm not that disappointed. Somehow it grew. You could have really argued it could have contracted. Not an easy month to fight your way through, especially with weather issues too and stuff. And a good thing here, the employment number, this is hires, continues to pound away, a 0.5 point gain every month. That's really good for the future, because we're starting to staff up, and it kind of coincides really well with our employment comments saying that it got easier to hire in January compared to December. So overall, I think we did really well here. I think, as you saw in that last chart, I mean, it's really unrealistic to think that we could stay above 60 for so long. We have been above 60 for a long time, longer than any other expansion in the last 20 years. And because of this input side acting as a natural governor, it's really easy to see where this is not going to be a typical expansion cycle, that it will extend out significantly longer than that average. I mean, just think about everybody still waiting for the automobile that just you can't seem to get.
This is all looking very good and very optimistic. The thing that tends to screw things up, though, are headwinds. And we do have our share of headwinds facing us, i.e. Russia, China, interest rates, the Federal Reserve, again, skill gap. Uh, I could, I created a circle of uncertainty and insecurity a couple of months ago. There are about 60 items on my my nightmare graphic, and they're all there. All the things I mentioned plus 56 others. What do you see as a major headwinds that could perhaps interfere with our forward moving upward trend?
Well, which ones do you like the best?
Well, which ones do I like?
Meaning the ones that are most significant.
Well, right now, I think interest rates are going to become a problem. They're talking about 4 rate increases over the course of the year, over the 2022 year. I think that's going to cause a problem, and that's going to directly affect your manufacturing at a glance chart. Employment is still, I know that those who you questioned about that are rather optimistic, but that's from being on the ground. But there's another reality. There's stuff going on behind the scenes that the manufacturing people don't fully see. And like I said earlier, with the unemployment, people going into business, retiring, dying, and so on, that this is a serious problem. And we don't have people to fill these jobs. I mean, we're going to be close to 3 million short in manufacturing. I mean, we're at 12,673,000 manufacturing companies, 12 million people, and we're short 3 million. So I don't have a favorite. I just have a whole culmination of sleepless nights.
Okay, so let's take the interest rate issue first. So yeah, for sure. I mean, going from 0 to maybe 2 in the space of a year and a half. I mean, I don't know. It's more emotional, isn't it?
Yeah, once
I mean,
you
2%, 2%, 2.5% federal funds rate. And I mean, it's not, I don't see that as catastrophic. I mean, that's not. So, I think maybe the selling back of bonds, taking money out of the market. I think you're seeing what the market's doing. I think that's reactionary, and the market loves volatility. Give me a reason, I'll get volatile.
Right.
I don't. Somehow we need to kind of put a damper on inflation, and there's no doubt that we're there. I mean, I just mentioned the quits rate. That means people quitting for higher wages, and that's a never-ending cycle, and we don't want to get in there. Nobody's saying that we're there yet, and we don't want to be there because, like I said, next thing you know, you got 20% of your manpower turning over every year, which in most businesses is a terrible thing. I think the Russian issue with Ukraine, I think that's going to have an impact on our energy costs because we're kind of the solution for gas. I mean, you can see Qatar too is getting involved. There's a couple of other significant countries that have the ability to export natural gas into Europe, but they don't have enough terminals to actually receive it all and store it. So, I think that's a lot of. I feel I've been watching the thing since a long, long time, and I feel for it, and I think it's got to be resolved one way or the other. So I think the employment side, it's a fundamental, it's a foundation, and either we automate better or we find more people in North America. It's going to be one or the other, and I think we're definitely on this path of moving towards more nearshoring and inshoring. I don't see the Asian thing outside of where they have 90% of the market as being something long-term viable. You can see what's happening here with the trade issues. It's the same discussions that we had under the prior administration, which are probably the right discussions. So, I think overall, we continue the investments in the U.S. and semiconductors and the attention on it. I think that's really good. And I think we need to get to a better balance here. We need to get back to the middle ground here in terms of politics. But yeah, I think I speak for the manufacturing community based on input from a whole bunch of panelists. Things are going well. They're going well, and we're operating really well. We tend to lead the economy into and out of declines. and we're leading the economy out of it. I think Anthony, on the other hand, has a bit of a more difficult job. He's got a much bigger employment element, and the issues that face-to-face interfacing is more prevalent with him. We're now starting to hit that period now. We're going into year 3, where this whole work from home thing is going to either show that it's okay or show that it's not okay. And I'll tell you that there's arguments on both sides for that. No doubt, arguments on both sides.
It's interesting regarding the remote working. I myself am a in the office kind of guy, and our full staff is basically working remotely, which actually turned out a lot better than I was fearful of. And actually, I find that the employees have been probably working more at home than when they were in the office, because they work whenever they think about it. I've seen emails that have gone out at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, shockingly. And again, things have been working out very well. I don't know if in the long run that's going to be really what I would like to see, because I think that we're missing something with regards to our interpersonal relationships with our employees. It's unfortunate, you stand around the cooler and you yak it up and have a cup of coffee and a couple of jokes, and then you can interact more deeply on some of your work issues than you can on the phone, emails, and even Zoom. So I'm still not a remote from home guy, but it's working.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I've said for quite some time now that this is a 3 to 5 year thing. So we're now entering year 3. So, and I can tell you in my daily life that we've done some things with this technology that we could never have done if we didn't have this technology, whether we're sitting in the office or not. Really, really fantastic stuff around collaborating with, multiples of companies, 5 or 6, 20, 30 people, 3 times a week kind of stuff that you would never, ever be able to do on a conference call or once a month face-to-face. And just the pace of change and the ability to pivot quickly using these tools has just been incredible. So there's goods and, not so, you mentioned some not so goods for sure. I tend to feel pretty close to my team still, but I do miss actually seeing them.
Yeah.
Besides just a 2D. Somebody mentioned the other day that, hey, at some point, you're going to have goggles on and you'll feel like you're back in the office. And I'm like, oh my, I think I want to be retired by then.
Well, it's rather funny. Years ago, I think it was Hurricane Sandy, we're in a high-rise office building, our administrative office, and we were blocked out of our neighborhood by the National Guard because we had flooding at our building, and we were shut down for 5 days. And when we all came back, I made up my mind that we have to create a business continuity plan in case this were ever to come up again. And we did. We worked on it for a year. And when we shut down in March 25th in 2020, we were up and running the day after we shut down because we had everything in place. Everyone had printers, computers, scanners, everything at home. And we were all connected through various platforms. And truly, it was one day that we were,
I believe it,
in trouble. So we were kind of ahead of that. And, and it's working well.
Yep,
except
I agree.
Zoom now and again.
Yeah, man, look, here we are. I mean, when you and I started this stuff, it was all on a telephone.
That's right. That's right. And it's so much nicer to see you.
Yeah, it's better. I agree with you. I agree. So, hey, you'll be happy to know that of our top 6 industry sectors, machinery displaced fabricated metal products. But I'm going to follow both. So it's now the big 7, which makes up 77% of the manufacturing economy. I can't drop fabricated metal products because it's just too near and dear to my heart and yours.
Absolutely.
I like the machinery one too, though, because I worked in that sector several times, and it's a highly intensive capital goods sector,
Right.
which is kind of cool to watch. So, and we got some great companies in there for sure. So, what's that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, as far as the industry sector is concerned, I'm not sure I mentioned this, but chemicals was the biggest headwind to performing in the month. Food and beverage came in right behind fabricated metal products. And the hiring side on food and beverage was pretty good. The others were all within a couple of points of each other month to month, but chemicals backed off probably about 5 or 6, which I think will come right back. And the biggest driver there was employment, and most of the employment at chemical facilities are shipping and receiving and MRO stuff. So it's a highly automated, continuous process kind of facility. So I see that coming back. If anything, if chemicals fell off, it would be because feedstock prices got too high compared to the rest of the world, which they're not, or there was problems in international bulk shipping, which there really isn't. So I think we're in a good position here, Lou. We're starting the year strong.
I think that I agree with you, and I think that February, which typically is a better month than January, historically, at least in my world, I think that February is even going to be stronger than this report in January.
I would guess. I would agree with you.
Yeah. So, any final comments, Timothy?
No, I think that's it. I think we started the year off well. Everything's positive. All the indicators that we're looking for to show positive directional movement show that. I think the only upsetting issue here was the prices index, which I think is just transition periodic. I think it's a timing issue. It will come back down to moving closer to that 60 point, which I think we need to show healthiness. Yeah, I think everything's good. Concerned about the backlog burning off and the new order rates, but I think February will tell the story on that. If the backlog number stays down, then we'll start talking a little bit more about demand. But in the meantime, demand is good and strong, and the whole challenge here is to get the production rate up through more labor on the factory floor and at our suppliers as the transportation sector eases a little bit to make it a little bit easier.
Well, I'm feeling optimistic, which isn't my normal state of mind. But I think, and obviously you do as well, that we're still going to be in that 36 to 40 month cycle, and things are looking good.
Yeah, it's feeling good, Lou. Okay, I got to run.
You bet. Have a good one. We'll talk.
Thanks very much, everybody. Take care. See you next month.
Okay. Well, folks, you heard it here. Mr. Timothy Fiore has predicted and presented what was coming down last month and the month of January, December and January. February looks fairly promising, and I'd like you to come and listen to our shows on a regular basis. Aside from Manufacturing Talk Radio, we have other podcasts all about manufacturing, whether it's women in manufacturing, and Cliff Waldman, who is on one of our shows, who's a fantastic speaker and a great economist. So tune in every Tuesday, and we will be giving you more news that you need to operate your business. So thanks all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.